do anything you want to do, okay? You're your own person. It's like, wow, you think this about me? No, that's so nice. You can write that. Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kisona and I'm a 4th year neuroscience major at Georgia Tech, and today I'm going to be filming, I guess, the start of my series, the Pre-Med Playbook, and this episode is going to be 10 things I wish I knew as a pre-med. So I wrote down a couple things on my iPad and I'm kind of going to be going off of that, so if I'm looking a little bit to the side, I'm just going to jump into it. Number 1 in my little list of things is, 1, everyone's path is different. I feel like as a pre-med it can be so easy to be like looking at like other pre-meds. I don't know, I feel like we're all a little bit competitive inside as a pre-med. You're kind of seeing what other people are doing, like, oh, that person's doing research, that person's doing that, etc, etc. But everyone's path to medicine is so different, and you can see that through like each new medical school class. Everyone is so different, everyone has such different diverse experiences. There's no one perfect, I guess, medical student. So don't focus on someone else's path because it's not your path. So I would just say, I guess, don't compare yourself to others and keep an open mind. 63% of all matriculating students into medical school take 1 or more gap years. So I feel like a lot of pre-meds come in and think like, I'm going straight in, etc, etc. But a majority of students take a gap year. And gap years are good because gap years just give you time to make yourself a better applicant. You get to volunteer more, you get to do research. Honestly, you can even just take a break before you embark on like a 4-year journey. So I honestly recommend just make sure, focus on yourself. Like, don't compare yourself to anyone else. Just, you know yourself, do your thing. Something I believe is that God has a path set out for each one of us, so there's no need to ever compare yourself to what the next person is doing. Just do what you gotta do, and yeah. Just do what you gotta do. So yeah, don't compare yourself to other people. That was my first tip. I'm gonna only get into like the real meat of it, but I feel like that was a really important first tip because it was something I even struggled with my 1st and 2nd year, was like comparing myself to others. And I think now, like my 3rd and going into my 4th year, like me just being comfortable in who I am, knowing my own worth, like I feel like it's like day and night between me right now and then me my freshman year. So it's not going to happen overnight, but try your best to not compare yourself to others because everyone's path in medicine is so different. Okay, 2, start shadowing early. It is never too early to start shadowing. I think people in their head think like shadowing is this like big like thing you have to prepare a bunch for, but actually shadowing is only like a day to a couple of days because you're just kind of watching a doctor do what they're doing in their day-to-day life. So after a couple days, or even if you just spend the whole day with them, you're not gonna like really see much else. So shadowing is honestly only a few days, so I recommend starting early because it's not the biggest time commitment. I recommend maybe like during your college break, so like your first winter break, Thanksgiving break, spring break, if you're not doing anything. Just go and hit up like your local, like it's a restaurant, I would just go hit them up. I recommend maybe a month or so before a break that you have nothing else to do or you're interested in shadowing. I recommend just emailing maybe a family physician or even just physicians in like your local area if they're offering like shadowing, and seeing if you could just kind of watch them for the day. If you kind of do it during breaks, it kind of breaks up, like I feel like people think, okay, I gotta do volunteering, I gotta do that, I feel like shadowing just kind of fits into the little intricacies of your life, because when you come home for winter break, if you have like a month for winter break, you're gonna have time to relax, you're gonna have time to hang out with your friends. But in that, most doctors are still working when you're home on winter break. So I really recommend just using a couple days of your break to go and shadow. Just make sure you reach out to these physicians like a month in advance. And I recommend reaching out to many because maybe you'll have a bunch of different specialties you can visit during winter break. And also, just because I know it's not always easy to be like, oh, just reach out to physicians. Also, I know that a lot of, at least hospitals in my area, offer like shadowing programs. You got to put your application in pretty early, but I know that like you can put your you can like fill out this form, and like they give you like a 1-day shadowing thing, and it's helpful because not everyone like knows a physician or even has a physician. So just make sure you're kind of doing your like some research, like maybe a couple months before a break, and it'll just let you make the most out of your break. So I really recommend shadowing early. So I recommend kind of just shadowing during your breaks because it's not the biggest time commitment, and it makes you feel productive during winter break when you're watching TV, and at least you shadowed a physician over the break too. Tip number 3. This kind of goes with the shadowing, but take notes when you're shadowing, when you're doing any clinical volunteering, etc. Because when you're writing your personal statements, your secondaries, I don't even know what else you're writing, work and activities, you're gonna want to be able to kind of look back on like your experiences. And for me, maybe my memory's not the best, but if I did something 2 years prior, it's a little bit difficult for me to recall it like now to like write about it. And even if it's just better if you take notes when you're doing it, because you're gonna write with so much more passion and really with much more detail that you're gonna want to put into the applications that you're writing. So I recommend like after each volunteer session, or like not volunteer session, after like your shadowing or after like clinical volunteering, especially if something impactful happened to you while you were there, I really recommend just like having a Google Doc, and that's what I did, and I would just kind of type up different things as I went, and I would just like date it as well. I'd be like, oh, 9/17/18, this happened. And honestly, that's been really helpful, as now I'm kind of writing my secondaries right now, and I'm able to kind of look through all my experiences, and I can kind of recall the mood that I was feeling as I was writing it, especially if it was like a difficult situation. And I don't only recommend this for volunteering or shadowing. If you had a semester that was really difficult for you, let's say like you had like any really big change in your grades, maybe write about it, because maybe did like a family member get sick, were you going through an illness, was something going on in your life, because it just allows you to be in that space where you are right now and write about what's occurring to you, because you're going to want to use this strong language when you're telling med schools, this affected me, etc., etc. So I really recommend, if you like journaling, journal. I don't journal. So I just had a little Google Doc, and I would just continually add to it. And now as I'm writing my secondaries, I'm constantly like referencing it for information. Definitely recommend having some type of just something to keep you like accountable. And also in that sheet, maybe also write down the hours and the dates you're doing something, because these are things you're gonna need to write down. So actually write down the dates and the hours, because you will need them in the future as well. Number four, connect with your pre-health office early. I cannot like stress this enough, or I feel like this is something like people think, oh, you go to the pre-health office like when you need them, so like your 3rd, 4th year you're going to be with the pre-health office. But honestly, I really recommend connecting with the pre-health office before you think you need them. And that's not necessarily saying like, oh, okay, let me go schedule like office hours with them, because I know for a dean, my pre-health advisor had drop-in sessions, and I would just kind of just go in there and just kind of connect with him. And through those sessions, he got to learn more about me. I told him about like what I do on campus, etc., etc. And it just creates a connection, and it's kind of like networking, because you're going to be kind of like the first to know about different opportunities that he may know of and that you don't know of. So it's kind of just helpful that you're creating connections with the pre-health office, because down the line you're gonna be using them, and it's just gonna be helpful if they kind of already know you beforehand. And I think this for me is helpful, because right now as I'm writing my secondaries, I'm connecting with my pre-health advisor as he's like kind of reviewing some of my stuff. And like sometimes when I get a secondary question, I'll read it and I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna take this approach. And then since my pre-health advisor knows me and he's like reviewing my application, he's like, well, Kusona, you did this. He's like, why don't you like, maybe if I have extra care duties, like why don't you add that in? I'm like, oh yeah, like I know I did it. Obviously I knew I did it, but when I first read the question, it wasn't my first idea to put that in there. So he like just creating that connection early on is really helpful, because they get to know who you are, why you're interested in medicine, etc. And then like since they know these applications back and forward, when you're writing them and you're asking for their input, they're able to actually like give you like really good suggestions, because they know you. So I really recommend creating genuine relations like super early. Like you can be a freshman, and I would say just like go to your pre-health office on your campus and be like, hey, my name's this person, I'm pre-med, what should I know? Like literally, you don't have to even come with a question, be like, what should I know? And I'm sure they will have something to tell you. So I can't stress that enough. Connect with your pre-health office, because honestly, for me, they have been so helpful. Okay, number 5. This is something I'm like slightly mad at myself that I didn't do, because like now as I'm doing my application, I'm like, I should have done this. So many med schools have summer programs, whether they're summer research programs or even just like summer like academic programs. So many medical schools have these programs. And so when I'm writing my secondaries, they're asking, did you participate in any of these programs? And I'm just like, not applicable. If I could go back to my freshman year, when the summer I took summer classes, I really truly wish that I had applied for summer programs into schools I was interested in, because so many schools have like research summer programs, and that is just like golden, because you are making a connection so early on with a school that you're interested in. And even if you're not interested in like any schools at your current moment, maybe even just the state medical school in your state, I would just apply for these programs, because it just is giving you like a connection that only a select few have at these schools. And also, regardless if you go to the school or not, you did some summer research at a different institution, you're making yourself a stronger applicant regardless of whatever you're doing, because you're doing some type of summer enrichment program. I really, really wish that I had done some type of summer program. So definitely, if you're interested in any school, or even if you're not interested in school, I would definitely recommend looking into these summer programs, because it's just gonna help you. It just gives a different like view on your application. So this is something I wish I had done, didn't do it. Learn from my mistakes, y'all. Apply for these summer programs, because honestly, they pay you really well. You're gonna be able to do research, and then you're gonna have a connection to a school you're possibly interested in. And then when the school is reviewing your application and you said, yeah, I participated in so-and-so program at your school, they're probably gonna hit up the program director, and during the program, you're gonna make all these connections. You're gonna be talking to the program director. You're gonna be the best you there, and you're gonna be making all these connections. So when they call up the program director, they're gonna be like, hey, do you know so-and-so? And they'll be like, yeah, I know so-and-so. They did this. They were innovative. I don't know, they did something amazing. So I really recommend you guys do these summer programs, because honestly, like on the low key, like I've been hearing that like people get into these schools and like just because they did these programs, so not just because, obviously they had other stuff going for them, but like it's like that the little summer program, like it took it off. Like it was like the I don't know, it set it off. I don't know the language, but do the summer programs. Number 6, create connections. This is like connecting. I don't know why. This is not like networking. You don't have to network, but I will recommend for number 6, connect with your professors and like other people who you may possibly be able to write you a letter of recommendation early on. Create like genuine connections, because letter of recommendations, I think the max you can submit to most schools are like 6. I don't really recommend. And you want these letter of recommendations to be strong. You want them to be able to not only talk about, oh yeah, this person was a great student. They're gonna see your grades. They'll be able to see that you're a great student. They're gonna be able to see that like you did this, that, and the other. But if you can have a professor write like, oh, they invited me to this volunteer service, they did this, they did that, really speak on you on like a personal level, that is just so like, that's just, I don't know, that's just so nice. Like that's so nice, you can write that. But no, that's seriously, because that's giving the schools, like you can write about yourself and you can say all these great things about yourself, but for someone else, like of a position, being a professor, your boss, another physician can write these words about you as well. Like that's just like, wow, like this person truly is who they say they are. So I really recommend making like genuine connections. Don't just make a connection with a professor because like, oh, I want a letter of recommendation. Like no. Like if you have a professor, like maybe you do research with them, maybe you invited them to a program you were hosting for a club meeting. Just make these connections early on and go to office hours early on. Show them that you're a hard worker. Show them various aspects of yourself. And I think it'll just make writing a letter of recommendation early. So I think I guess, general recommendations. You can get a letter of recommendation, I think, from mostly anyone. So I think for me, I think I did 2 science professors, 1 non-science professor. I have a Spanish minor, so I got my Spanish professor to also write me a letter of recommendation. I think I do a lot of like, well, I have like jobs and extracurriculars on campus, and so I got 2 from like jobs / extracurriculars, and then I got 1 from a physician who was actually my professor. So I mean, I didn't really shadow him, but he was my professor. Just make sure you can get people who can speak about different aspects of you. My professors that I did for sciences, they can speak about how I was a hard worker, how I went to office hours, even when I would get a C on a test, I still came back and I worked really hard to get my grade in each class. So my science professors can talk about that aspect of me and how like I overcame adversity of struggling with school. My non-science professor, my Spanish minor, can talk about how I one day want to serve a diverse population, how I want to be able to speak Spanish to my patients, etc. So she can talk about that aspect of me, and also struggled in Spanish. So she can talk about how I struggled in Spanish too. My jobs and my extracurriculars, like they can just talk about like the ways I helped them, did different things. I really think that my jobs and my extracurricular ones were probably my strongest ones, just because one of them sent me to proofread and I almost cried. It was like, I was like, wow, you think this about me? So, and then I had my physician as well, who can also talk about, I guess, our class was kind of like critical thinking type of a class. So just make sure you're getting professors and people who can write like different aspects of your life. Like I'm not saying every professor has to, or every person has to write a letter of recommendation that's going to make the committee cry, but make sure that you're picking people who can talk about various aspects of your life. Like maybe if you did research, ask your PI in the lab, etc., etc. But make sure you're getting people who can write different aspects of you. And yeah, so that's all I can say. So make those connections early, do different things on campus, so like when you have to like choose people to write these letter recommendations, like it's not too difficult. Number 7, we're flying through this video, y'all. Number 7, I think this is to me really important, but do extracurriculars that you're genuinely interested in. So for example, I think when pre-meds like come to college, like, okay, well, I need to volunteer, I need to shadow, I need to maybe be in a pre-health club, I need to keep my GPA up, etc., etc. And through all that, like, that's a lot of stuff already. So like people may not even do any other extracurriculars, but I truly think that you should do things that you're passionate about, because it's going to set you apart from other applicants, and it's going to, when you write about these things that you're truly passionate about, your language is going to differ. So for example, let me see, like, so for example, I would say something really big I wrote about was in like my personal statement, and just everything, and everything in general was my work with underrepresented students, mainly minority, and also my work with my peers with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Those are 2 things I'm really, really passionate about, and those are 2 things I worked a lot with in college. And so those were clubs that I thought, like, that when I came into college, I wasn't thinking, oh, like, this is medicine, like this is what's going to lead me to medicine. I did these clubs because I genuinely enjoyed them. I was genuinely interested in them, and it was something that gave me fulfillment at the end of the day. At the same time, I also like am really active at the gym. I do like various other things, but these are things that I was enjoyable, some things I genuinely enjoyed. And so I sought after positions in these clubs. I made connections with the directors of these programs, and then I got to write about them. And through and then I was able to get letters of recommendations through them, and then honestly I was able to write about them. You know, when I became an RA, I wasn't thinking that I was going to be writing about that in my not my personal statement, but like in any of my secondaries. But lo and behold, I cannot speak anymore, I'm writing about them. So do things that you're genuinely interested in, because it will show true passion, and then also it'll set you apart. And I'm not saying like don't do medical clubs. Like, I'm president of Minority Association of Pre-Medical Students. Like, I'm not at all saying don't do them. If you're interested in them, obviously you should do them, because honestly these clubs will, I guess, give you the access, I don't know, allow you access. will help you get access to resources, and these clubs are actually very helpful as well. A lot of times you can get discounts on different like prep companies, you can get like discounted prep services, you can get like different volunteering opportunities. I'm not at all saying don't do these pre-med clubs. Obviously I'm in a pre-med club, but at the same time, don't only think you have to do pre-med clubs. You know, you can do anything you want to do, okay? You're your own person. But make sure you do stuff you actually enjoy. So that's kind of what I'm saying. So, you know, you're going to shadow, you're going to volunteer, you're going to maybe be in the pre-med clubs on your campus, but at the same time, do things that fulfill you at the end of the day. And it's not like, oh, I have to write this down, I have to do this. Things that you love. There we go. Things that you love. I also was in like salsa club. Literally. What does that have to do with it? Nothing. You can do anything you want to do, okay? You're your own person. So do things that you love. You can do anything you want to do, okay? You're your own person. So this is 8. I literally said do things you love, and then number 8 is participate in clinical volunteering or clinical work. Okay, now I know, I see why I was writing that down. So I volunteered for almost a year, over a year maybe. I think I volunteered for over a year at like a cancer institute, I don't know, radiation clinic. And I loved it. I truly, like, some of my most impactful experiences occurred working at, like, volunteering at this place. But I feel like people in their head think of shadowing and volunteering. However, something I wish I had looked more into was kind of doing clinical work. So scribing, working as like a nursing assistant, working as an EMT. I know a couple of like people I know who have been doing these things, and it kind of is really cool because you're actually firsthand seeing things. Like if you are in the room as the doctor is, as an emergency room scribe, as a doctor is giving, like, treating a patient, you're having clinical experience, probably more than I had clinical experience when I was clinical volunteering. Like if you are able to work as an EMT, you're taking patients to the hospital, you're probably going to be standing in the room a little bit more. You're getting like firsthand, real deal medicine, and when it's good and when it's bad. So something I wish I looked more into is clinical work, where you're getting paid, which I don't really mind not getting paid. When I was doing my clinical volunteering, like I had 2 jobs on campus, I was making the money I needed to make, but at the same time, that's not always the case for everybody. So especially if money is an issue, or like you need to make money, or you just want to make money, I would recommend doing clinical work. So look into scribing, look into being an EMT, look into be like a nursing assistant, etc., because these are clinical hours. So you get to write down, like, you got paid, and then you also get to write about them that you saw this, you witnessed this, etc. I think scribing right now is really, really popular, I guess, for pre-meds, but I know someone who's an EMT, and I thought that was really cool. And not like an EMT in like who drives in the truck. Like she's like EMT at like a children's hospital around here. So I don't really know what she does exactly, but you don't have to be like driving around like in the scenes that you see on TV. So definitely look into like clinical work, because your clinical work when you're working as a scribe will also count as clinical, like when you're writing like clinical hours on your application, it's gonna like transfer. And so I would definitely look into doing clinical work, especially if you are a little bit pressed with like finances. It's gonna help you out a lot. So clinical, and this is not at all bagging on clinical volunteering. I did clinical volunteering. That's how I got majority of my clinical hours. Nothing against it. And I mean, it's nice as well to do it, and I loved it. Wouldn't have taken back the experiences. However, I wish I had looked into scribing as well, because I clinical volunteered for quite a bit of time. I wish maybe I had split the time up and maybe did clinical volunteering and then half like scribing or becoming an EMT. Number 9, take your MCAT when you're ready. I think for people who want to go straight in, you're supposed to say take your MCAT your junior year, the spring of your junior year. However, I think you need to however, there's no timeline with it. Take it whenever you're ready. I think some people like, okay, I have to take my MCAT this time, my blah 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 year, but take your MCAT whenever you're ready. And I think take it as close to when you finish your prereqs as possible. If that's not possible, then just take it when you feel ready. There's no timeline of when you should take your MCAT. Obviously take it before you have to apply, but there's no like, don't think, okay, 3rd year spring I have to take my MCAT, 4th year fall I have to take my MCAT, take it when you're ready, because you just really need it when you're going to be applying. So I guess the spring time before you start applying is when you need it done. I personally took my MCAT like the end of the summer of my second year, technically. Was that it? I guess beginning of my third year, just because I had finished my prereqs by then and I wanted to take it while those were all fresh in my head. And I definitely saw one of my sections really show out, I think because I took it so close to when I had finished the class. So there's no timeline to your MCAT at all. I'm not saying you have to take your prereqs, take your MCAT. Take it whenever you're ready, but don't think that there's a timeline. There's really not a timeline for anything technically. You can apply when you want. There's no timeline. You guys, this is the last tip. I'm sure there's other tips, but these are the ones that I wish that I utilized, didn't utilize, or wish I'd known. My last tip is to, I guess, I don't even know how to phrase this. I guess it's apply for fee assistance / save your money. So if you guys didn't know, the process for applying to medical schools is very expensive. I did not know money could leave my bank account so quickly until I started applying. It is crazy how expensive the process is. And I honestly believe this is why, like, this disadvantages marginalized populations, and there's a reason why medicine is really working to diversify, because if you don't have this money, you cannot apply. And I really cannot stress enough saving your money. Like, it is so important, because if you don't have the money, you just cannot submit you can't submit your secondary. Like, if you don't have the money, you can't submit your primary application. Like, you have to have the money, because it's like, if you don't have it, then you're not submitting it. And so I really cannot stress enough to save your money. And then also, if you're eligible, look into fee assistant. I don't really know the requirements for fee assistant. I know, like, there's a cutoff of like how much money your parents make, but look into fee assistance and look into it early, because if you apply for fee assistant early, I know it gives you a discount on your MCAT, it gives you a discount on your primaries, it gives you a discount on your secondaries, and I think it also gives you like access to like test prep material. So if you're pre-med, honestly, I would start looking into that maybe my second, or even depending, look into your second year before you take your MCAT. Look into the fee assistant program. I don't know the requirements for it at all. It may be strict, it may not be strict, so look into it before, especially if you're in the financial situation that you need fee assistance. Look into it early on, and even if you're not, you might be, so just look into it. I myself was not eligible for fee assistance, so I had to kind of pay everything out of pocket, and that's when your savings, like your savings come in. I feel like I started saving, not necessarily for medical school, but like just trying to save my coins like since high school. But really, when I became like a freshman in college, I was very like mindful of how much money I was spending and making sure that I was setting aside a set amount of money each paycheck. Like, I truly believe you could easily spend over $5,000 per application cycle easily. Right now, because we're in COVID, I don't think probably any of I'm gonna have to be flying out for any interviews, which is gonna save me a lot of money. But the amount of money I've already dropped on primary and secondary applications, and I'm not even done with secondary applications, it's a lot. Like, I don't want to call it outrageous. It's a price I have to pay. But if you don't have this money, like, then how are you going to go to school? Like, how can you even apply to a school? How are you going to get a chance? And so I cannot stress enough saving money, because it's just gonna, like, I guess it's nice for me that I'm not like stressing. Like, I mean, it's annoying when this money's leaving my account and it's like it's for school, I guess. But at the same time, it's a relief that I have this money saved up. So I just would recommend save your money, save as much money as possible, because like even if you don't use it all, then that's money you can start paying off your loans early. So definitely, I would say a big tip, and this is a tip for every aspect of life, but just save your money, because it's a very expensive process. Okay, so I feel like this video, I don't know how long it is, but I feel like these are the tips that I wish I had known, wish I had done better, etc., etc. And so I just want you guys to learn from my mistakes, or things that not even my mistakes, or things that I just wish I had known, and I want you guys to go out and you guys do them, or things that I think that made pre-meds are like misconceptions or something. So that is really all I have. I can't think of any more. These are the 10 tips that I came up with. Obviously there's a ton of other tips, but yeah. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This is, I guess, the beginning of my pre-med series. I'm hoping to do some other videos, probably talking about personal statements, maybe secondaries, really anything. So if you guys have any specific pre-med questions, make sure to just comment them down below. But without further ado, that's about it. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.